on this rap-ish. I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list. Hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody's south of Capitol Hill's rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and plan to getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me? I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
X-ray season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that, hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it
I hate
for
these
us.
average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my own flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete. I'm a verbal athlete, deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building. My whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd. I'm looking out the windows here. We see a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of hope out there. Got a very full show today, so we're going to jump into it here shortly. We're joined by Cynthia Brothers from Vanishing Seattle. This Borrachini story, it's a big story. It's impacting the whole city. Like, people are chiming in on that. We're going to be joined by Jessin Farrell. Jessin Farrell is running for mayor. She's going to tell us about her vision for the Emerald City. And we're also joined by comedian and cartoonist Brett Hamill. Before I introduce my co-host over here today, I want to remind you, this is the perfect opportunity for you to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and tag and share the stream with someone who you feel could appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. We'll go to the wide shot, and let me introduce my guest host today, as Trey Holiday has a day off, Jake Gravbrot.
Good morning, everybody. I'm standing in for Trey today, so I hope to do the best job that I possibly can. But I will say this: if I'm going to do this anymore, I'm going to have to change up my wardrobe a little bit because I don't have too many button-ups. So, got some Converge hoodies that I can wear, though.
For people that watched the anniversary show, can you promise them you won't make me cry today?
I promise I will not make Amari cry today. That's only reserved for once a year.
You had me crying on the anniversary show. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have to get you back for that. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into things, and we'll bring in Cynthia Brothers of Vanishing Seattle.
Hey,
Hi,
Amari. Hey,
hi,
Jake.
Cynthia.
Hi,
Long
Cynthia.
time no see.
I'm saying, right? It was just last Thursday.
Uh-huh.
We got some stuff here, a little bit of photos and stuff that we'll talk about here in a second. But for people who might not be hip to what's going on, what's the big story of Vanish in Seattle with Borrachini's?
Yeah, so Borrachini's Bakery and Mediterranean Market on Rainier Avenue, which has been at that location since 1939. And the bakery itself, its roots go back to 1922. They announced on Saturday, I believe, that they were going to be closing permanently. They had closed at the start of the pandemic in March, opened back up in June for a bit, and then closed again. So yeah, the news got out, and people were just kind of freaking out. Just a huge outpouring of memories and feelings, grief and celebration, because if you grew up in Seattle, Borrachini's just was pretty much guaranteed to be a presence at any sort of gathering, get together, celebration.
Right, and what are the main reasons that Borrachini family decided to close for good?
Well, I think pretty much the only thing that I've seen that we have to go on is their Facebook statement. There's been some coverage in local media as well, but I think it's basically the impact that the pandemic had directly on their business. They, in addition to the bakery, they also have a lot of groceries and goods from Italy. And their supply, I think, was greatly affected by the pandemic and the shutdown in Italy. And then, because of the pandemic, folks aren't getting together to celebrate. They're not having in-person gatherings. So they're not ordering, those legendary cakes. So yeah, I think basically it just affected their ability to remain in business for the long term, unfortunately.
Well, actually, let me we got a few photos here that we put together, and we're gonna put these up here, and maybe you can give some description.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of people just DM me pictures. So this is a picture that King County Council member Gramai Zahalai shared of his birthday. This is a grandparent's 60th anniversary. This is a 18th birthday / graduation that was sent to me from a follower. This is my friend Shannon Coyano's 3rd birthday with the cake. This is a book that was written about baseball in Seattle Place in 1955, and it includes a scene from Borrachini's, and I guess it started a bunch of informal tours, and they would give out cookies to folks who came. That's a picture of the author Mark with Remo. This is a picture someone sent me of that cake knife that they kept all these years. And then finally, this person baked a tribute cake right after they heard the news about Borrachini's. So again, just a outpouring of memories and support for this bakery that really meant a lot to so many Seattleites. I was trying to run through them real fast.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It was kind of speedy there. Did you have a question, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we've heard so much about events being shut down, and you brought up a great point that gatherings as well have just not happened, and for good reason, over the course of this last year, because we have wanted to be safe. But ultimately, I saw in the comments yesterday somebody asked the question of, is there anything that the actual general public could do to try to fundraisers or anything like that for these guys? And is there, or do they have any desire to?
That's a great observation and question. I mean, I often wonder the same thing, including in the case of Borrachini's. I mean, yeah, I think it would be great. And you will often see small businesses put out a GoFundMe and people rally together to, support the business to hold it over, through this crisis period. But I mean, I don't know, like I haven't seen a response from the family. I can't speak for them, but I mean, yeah, I will affirm that I've definitely seen the same desire that you have, that folks feel like they want to do whatever they can to save the business. But it's, unclear if it might be too late at this point. I'm not sure.
Why do you think that there is such a emotional attachment around Borrachini's?
Well, first, I think it's just the sheer longevity of the business. It's been around since the 20s. Um, and so you have this generational impact, this, decades long legacy where you have families that not only had, the cakes present at their gatherings, but their parents and their grandparents, their office parties. And it's there at a time when people are, for the most part, celebrating, having a good time. Also, the cakes and the baked goods themselves were really delicious, and people talk about, being able to think about and taste the frosting. And then I think the business itself was a gathering place for not only historically the Italian American community in what was known as Scarlet Gulch in that commercial area of Rainier. But its customer base was as diverse as the South End. It was as diverse as Seattle, and it brought people from like all over King County to shop there, and they had folks, meeting there regularly in the Delhi area. So I think in just over time and through good memories and good times, it's just touched so many people's lives.
Right. And I tweeted yesterday, and my tweets are kind of like, they do okay, but not a big tweeter like a lot of these other news professionals here in the city. But I tweeted yesterday about Borrachini's, and it's like 700 likes. For somebody like me, a little guy like me, that's a big deal. It's like so many people were just, it's this outpouring here. And one thing an observation that I thought about, and it was there in the pictures, and you could put up this overlay of Councilmember Zahalai real quick, is that how not only was Borrachini's intergenerational, but it was intercultural. I mean, when you talk about Garlic Gulch back in the day there, and then here you have Gurmai Zahalai, East African kid, then now King County Council member, who as well has chimed in with this. And it's amazing how Borrachini's, who 100% proudly is an Italian place through and through, but they were multicultural throughout the city. All kinds of different cultures love Borrachini's.
Yeah, and I think another thing is that it felt accessible. It was relatively affordable. It was kind of like, it felt like a bakery for the people. You can go up there and get like an amazing meatball sandwich for like $3 or $4. You had staff that worked there for decades and, watched their customers and their kids grow up there. So yeah, I mean, I think the online response has been huge. Just on Vanishing Seattle platforms, I think there's close to 600 comments about Borrachini's and growing. And then if you look at that original announcement for Borrachini's Facebook page, it's like 2,000 something comments. So something about this place seems very uniquely Seattle, and it kind of represents this very special cross section, of our various communities.
Right. And now, but before we let you go, we're going to see you again on Thursday. And it's kind of interesting how all of this came together by like fate and destiny that you're on here today about Borrachini, and the Trey was out and Jake's in there, because both of you guys worked together on this Thursday's episode of Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition, episode 2. If you could tell people quickly, what can they expect from Thursday's episode?
Yeah, so I'm super excited. The first one was really fun that we had last Thursday. So this coming Thursday is going to be the second part in our 2-part series. We're focusing on 4 neighborhoods, but this Thursday we're going to be focusing on the Central District and Ballard. And so showing the Vanishing Seattle films on Wanawari and Scandinavian specialties. And then we also work together to produce segments on the Postman and Skull Beer Hall. So kind of telling the story, kind of a vanishing, or of things in danger of vanishing, but also the flip side of that, which is businesses and gathering spots that are being really creatively resilient, or, even very new businesses that are kind of continuing on the tradition legacy of the neighborhood that they're in. So we're going to bring in some panelists as well, some community members to join the conversation and talk about the work that they're doing. So yeah, really, really excited about this Thursday.
You excited, Jake?
I'm excited. I'm actually going to be watching from somewhere in the middle of the desert. So, I'll tune in for sure.
Yeah, and Jake Gravbrot actually shot a lot of the stuff that we'll see on Thursday, along with the team there from Vanish in Seattle. Cynthia Brothers, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. This Borrachini conversation is a big conversation. I just want to leave people with this before we go to break, is that it's like, especially people that are new to Seattle, and it's a lot of people that are new, and someone might be like, why is everybody making a big deal over this bakery? And yeah, basically almost 100 years in business, but every time a legacy business like Borrachini closes its doors, it rips off the scab of this accumulated grief that we have on how much our city has changed. And it kind of gets you right here, because we were reminded of a city that once was. Lots of us, we aspire to get it back, but for some of us, I think that we know that some of these things won't be coming back. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate you, Cynthia, documenting Vanishing Seattle, of what's vanishing, but also what hasn't vanished as well, and look forward to talking to you on Thursday.
Thank you so much for having me, Omari. Appreciate the work that you and Jake and the team are doing. And I'll just say, if there is any sort of percolation out there that maybe there would be a chance to do a GoFundMe, or I don't know, if the family's interested in reviving, let me know, and I'd be happy to amplify that, because again, I don't know if it's possible, but I always like to hold on to any shred of hope there might be. And people want to continue sending me their pictures and their memories of Borrachini's, we can at least keep them alive and honor everything that business has given us through celebrating them. So yeah, thanks again for having me. See you on Thursday.
All right. Catch you later.
All right.
Bye, Cynthia.
All right. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we have Jessin Farrell. Jessin is running for the mayor of the Emerald City, and we're going to talk to her about her vision for our town. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Community Voices returns for 2021 with 2 very special episodes that examine the shifting demographics and cultures of Seattle. Converge Media proudly presents Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition. This is a 2-part special that examines 4 Seattle neighborhoods: the Central District, Chinatown International District, the University District, and Ballard, all Seattle neighborhoods that have experienced great change and displacement due to gentrification, rising rents, and development, as well as found creative ways to stay rooted and resilient. Also, all neighborhoods that have a long and proud history, culture, and traditions that combined help shape the face of the Emerald City as we know it today. The Community Voices episodes will include films plus discussions with local small business owners and community members. These are 2 powerful live episodes that you will not want to miss. So make sure and save the date, March 18th and March 25th at 7 p.m. across all Converge Media platforms. Presented by the City of Seattle Department of Neighborhoods and Vanishing Seattle.
The story of Converge Media did not start at the Seattle protests or at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, nor 4 years ago when we very first opened our doors. The true story of Converge Media is firmly rooted in the legacy of Black media heroes of yesterday, whose shoulders that we stand upon today. Converge Media is firmly rooted in the pioneering spirit of Horace Caton Sr., who over 125 years ago launched the Seattle Republican newspaper alongside his wife, Susie Revels Caton, a trailblazer in her own right, serving as the associate editor, a groundbreaking feat for a woman, and especially a Black woman at that time. We are rooted in the visionary eye of Al Smith, who documented Black beauty, culture, vibrance, and excellence through his lens. We are rooted in the benevolence of Fitzgerald Beaver, who envisioned the Facts newspaper, the very same newspaper where my father, James Salisbury Jr., was a staff photographer over 4 decades ago. We are rooted in the broad and innovative shoulders of Chris Bennett, who with his Z-Twins radio took the story of Black excellence to the airwaves. We are rooted in the fearlessness of Roberta Bird Barr, who 56 years ago broke ground and shattered stereotypes as she hosted the TV show Face to Face that tackled issues of race and equity head on. We are rooted in the rhythms of Gordon Curvey, whose music Inner City brought our culture and vibes to TV screens across the Emerald City. Converge Media is also inspired by our contemporary icons. We are inspired by the commitment to storytelling from Tony B and Rainier Avenue Radio, and inspired by the passion and dedication of Marcus Harrison Green of the South Seattle Emerald. So you see, when you look at Converge Media today, and especially as we celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Morning Update Show, just know that our story did not begin with us, nor will it end with us, as it is our duty at Converge Media to broaden our shoulders for the next generation of Black media innovators to stand firmly upon them and to tell the stories of our community to generations yet to come. Share the stream. Share the stream, man. Yeah, I love that video. Not just because it's me talking on it, but we've gotten so much just great feedback on just the history. You know, I mean, it's Converge. We always like to throw in some history lessons around here.
Yeah, and the other thing too, we talk a lot about just remaining humble, and I think that that video really hits on where the roots are, and it got me when I first saw it. So, good job.
All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. And speaking of share the stream, this is a good reminder right now. Go ahead and share the stream because we're getting ready to bring on a candidate for mayor of the Emerald City. And so you want to make sure that all your people can see this interview. Oh, yeah. D'Alessandro, please bring in Jessen Farrell. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Mr. Grant Brock?
I'm great too. Yeah, it's great to have you on. Thank you for coming.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
All right. So we have a few standard kind of things here that we do when people are running for public office, and some boilerplate questions that we always ask. So we'll start off with that. Jessen, can you tell us, why are you running for mayor of the Emerald City?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. And thank you so much for all the work you're doing in the community. And congratulations on your year anniversary. That is fabulous. And I think this piece that you just did, this segment on Borghini's, really is a lot of why I'm running. I think one of the fundamental questions that we're asking ourselves is, who are we as a city and what are we going to be? And the bottom line is that people are really suffering right now, whether it is economic hardship, small business owners, like iconic businesses like Borghini's closing, and others across the city, other ways of experiencing economic hardship, isolation from the pandemic, racial justice, all the things that families with kids are going through right now with remote schooling. This is just a really, really hard time. And we have to really figure out how we're going to be as a city going forward. And I think that in our hearts, we all believe that we can be this city that rises up to the challenges of poverty and injustice and racism. And we need a leader that has that vision of a Seattle that is a place of justice and shared prosperity, and that relentless commitment to waking up every single day and working on realizing that vision of the city. So that's why I'm running, because we can do so much better.
Right. And, the city of Seattle, 700,000 plus residents, the city itself, organization of 11,000 employees. There's 35 different departments that report to the executive branch. You got a city council where it's kind of frosty on and off over there. Can you share with us your qualifications for running for the office of mayor?
Sure. So I've been fighting for our community my whole career. I was born in Seattle, and I ran a nonprofit organization called Transportation Choices Coalition, where we fought really hard for transportation investments in the city and around the region and state. I was a state legislator from Northeast Seattle for 5 years, where I fought for families and women passing more protections for pregnant women in the workplace. Before 2017, when Karen Kaiser and I passed that bill, you could get fired for being pregnant in Washington state. Supports for homeless and vulnerable youth in the state. I helped negotiate our paid family leave law. And I just think that this is an election where people are really hungry for change and vision, but also that deep commitment to solving people's problems. And that's what I've been doing my whole career.
Right. And Jake actually had a question. We were going to wait until later on in the interview, but you said one of his keywords, which is transportation. And so go ahead, Jake.
Jessen, so I've been a lifetime public transit user here in Seattle. I actually, I've lived in the South End for a long time, but I used to live up near your neck of the woods. I used to take the 522 into the city. And over the course of the first part of the pandemic, we had cut all transportation fares, so there was none. And I noticed that it was actually quite a positive financial impact for me over the course of this last year. And so my question would be, is that a sustainable actual option moving forward? And if so, how do we make that happen? And how do we also see to it that on the back end that it's not coming still out of the pockets of the people that really need it the most? I think some people think that, how does this affect me? But in all honesty, if we have more people riding the bus, then it affects everybody positively because there's less cars on the road and we're being better for the environment.
Yeah, great question. I'm so glad I get a chance to geek out on transportation since that is one of my love languages. So I think on the issue of, making fares free, that is something we should absolutely keep in place, because a fare is something that hits a person no matter what income they have, right? So you have, in some ways it's part of our regressive system of funding services in this state, right? If you're a really wealthy person, you're paying the same $375 that you're paying if, you are not making a lot of money. And so we should absolutely be, have this commitment to not bringing back fares. And, I think part of the thing that we should understand is that fares are actually only a very small part of what it takes to run a bus or a light rail. So when you're taking away fares as a funding stream, it doesn't, it has an impact. I don't want to deny that, but it's actually something that we can replace. And so, I think that there are three things on the transportation funding front generally that we need to be thinking about. We have a transit rider in chief now in the White House, which is super awesome. And so we need to really be pushing the feds to be taking a much more robust role than they have been in the last several years. But historically, the feds have been a real partner in both the operations side and the actual building stuff side. The second thing is the state. And I don't want to be a mayor that's only looking to the state and feds, but they are really important partners. The state really needs to step up on funding transit. There is a clear relationship between the climate emissions that come from our transportation systems and our stated climate goals. And so if the state really cares about actually reducing emissions from transportation, we actually have to have alternatives to driving that are awesome, not ones that may take 2 hours or whatever it is, but really, really solid alternatives. And that means funding transit. And then finally, the city needs to lean into its commitment to equitable transportation, making sure that every single part of the city has great service so that you can get to where you need to go. And that means not just funding the things that are, like getting people to downtown Seattle during commute hours, but all those other needs that people have, like getting to a medical appointment or getting to a job that's maybe on a swing shift, getting your kids to school. I could go on, I'll stop there, but those are just some of the ideas that I have.
Right. So when we talk about any mayor that comes through here is going to be dealing with a recovery, with a COVID recovery, and Mayor Durkin stated that the reason why she wasn't running for re-election is she wanted to be able to focus her energy on the recovery. The DSA, the Downtown Seattle Association, they just put out a new ad where it's saying the downtown is open. Let's play this and we'll talk about it on the other side. All right, downtown's looking great in this video here. And you know, our studios are right here on First and Washington, so we are downtown. But we'll speak big business and then small business. Speaking big business and speaking downtown as a whole, what would be your plan for recovery from downtown? What would your commitment be to bring downtown out of COVID and into, I guess, a new normal?
Yeah, so a couple of first really high level things. You know, in Seattle politics, we have this tendency to be like, are you a neighborhood mayor or are you a downtown mayor, right? And we have great neighborhoods and we have a great downtown, and a really high functioning Seattle has to invest in both of those. So that's really important. You know, on the downtown front, one of the things that we need to really be wrestling with is what's going to happen after COVID. Are jobs coming back downtown? What does that look like? And I think the core question, you know, one of the other thing that often happens in Seattle politics is this kind of pitting against labor versus workers. And I think, you know, nobody wants Seattle to be a race to the bottom city. And the way that we really kind of achieve that cutting edge and that competitive edge and rebuild downtown, I think, is by solving some of those problems that existed well before COVID, right? Like the affordability, the housing affordability crisis, and the issues around childcare affordability. And so we had all this great job growth downtown over the last several years, but we also didn't have the same commensurate housing growth at a variety of economic levels and a variety of housing that would meet people at their various life cycle needs. Like elder housing is hard to find downtown, family housing, if you want to live downtown with your kids. And so to really revitalize downtown, one of the core strategies is just helping people live there and having a housing strategy that has people downtown.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about small business, and then I wanted to move on to like public safety and things like that. But in small business in our neighborhood in the Central District of Seattle, you know, there's a small business called The Postman, owned by Kiana and Devon Pickett. It's a mail shipping service. Devon's grandfather, Jacques Chappelle, was a letter carrier in the Central District for almost 40 years. So they opened a business there. And I'll play this clip here because what they've said is that oftentimes politicians usurp their story and other stories of Black businesses and use it as a soundbite and aren't really interested in understanding the dynamics of their business or the community.
Coming in and talking to us, we've experienced in the past, you know, having politicians speak for us and they didn't actually have a conversation with us and really listen to what we need and what we want. And so we just recommend and encourage the city leaders and politicians to, you know, come down to the Postman, come talk with Devon or I.
Now, saying this, and I hear you on the point that I don't think that it has to be an either or mayor. I think anybody that leads our city needs to be dynamic enough. See what I'm saying? It's like if you're either or, that means you're just not dynamic, and you probably shouldn't be mayor. To be honest with you, is my opinion. You have to have a dynamic approach to be able to deal and work with all sections of our city, big business and small business. But speaking here of the Postman, what is your commitment to small business, especially small business in marginalized neighborhoods in our city?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I'm running is, as a former legislator, I was really disappointed in my colleagues a year ago in not opening up the rainy day fund and saving small businesses. You know, I got to be the chair of the governor's task force on economic recovery, and we actually spent the summer and fall listening to small businesses with a real focus on BIPOC-owned businesses. And what we heard is that people were being left out of the PPP program. That was the federal loan program that, you know, allowed you to get loans to kind of, you know, short-term save, cover your operating expenses. You might, and that was for a lot of reasons. You might not have had a traditional banking relationship. You might not have had an accountant that could help you get through all of the hoops to be able to get a loan. And, you know, the messaging and who and what communities were being told about programs were also a real issue. And so we created recommendations to address those three things. And one of those things resulted in a $50 million fund called the Washington Recovery Fund that was deliberately aimed at those business owners that did not have access to PPP loans. And we also really heard that, you know, the $10,000 loans that the city was doing was just not sufficient. You really needed access to $100,000 loans plus, and a long repayment time, recognizing that we've been in this now for a year and pivoting to recovery is going to be harder. And so as mayor, my commitment is really to deeply scaling up the access to capital, the technical resources, the trusted messengers to get word out and to learn about what it is that businesses need, and to really aim our efforts at undoing, you know, the fact that white businesses in Seattle have 11 times the value that Black-owned businesses do. We need to say that out loud and aim our policies at closing that gap.
I appreciate, you know, that comment right there. So it's not so much as a question that I have, but just acknowledging and also just kind of re-emphasizing that we have been, I believe this week is a year from when we were officially, you know, told to shut down, to mask up. And, you know, one full year in, the longer that we keep on going in this, and it's harder and harder for these businesses to get by. I was working for a small business that had to shut down. I worked for Clock Out Lounge up on Beacon Hill, which is a music venue and event space. And we were the first to close down. And I still hear constantly from my old boss, just the struggles that they have had in trying to make, you know, ends meet over the course of this last year. And I hear it from so many other small businesses that I frequent, you know, and just trying to support in my own kind of way. So yeah, the longer that this goes on, the more difficult that it's going to be. And even in the segment right before yours, you know, we have Vanishing Seattle on, and businesses that are closing through all of this, that ultimately, you know, the longer that it went, the more that we're seeing have to close. So I appreciate that acknowledgement.
Let me ask you this, shifting gears here. One of the questions that we got, and we got a few here off of Twitter and off of email and things, is what differentiates you from, let's say, Colleen Echo Hawk or Council President Gonzalez?
You know, I think that, first of all, I would just say I respect anyone who is willing to put their ideas and their story out into, you know, what is a really difficult political environment in Seattle. And I have a lot of respect for both of them. I do think, though, that this is a moment where voters are really hungry for change. You know, I think that there are a lot of people who feel like things are not going great, and it is a failure of, you know, city leadership. And I think the second part of this is that people really want their problems solved, right? Not just to have big, lofty ideals, and I have those big, lofty ideals, but it is also about being able to deliver for people. And when you look at my legislative record, again, whether it's delivering the Northgate bike pedestrian bridge to connect North Seattle College to the new light rail station that's going to go there, or, you know, again, helping, you know, pass distracted driving laws to reduce highway deaths. Like, these are things that we can do to solve problems. And I would also just say, I passed these bills in a really polarized environment. When I was in the legislature, Republicans controlled the Senate and Democrats controlled the House, but we were able to pass really progressive legislation. And again, it is really about focusing relentlessly and with commitment on solving problems. And I think voters are going to really respond to that.
Right. But man, it looks like we're getting ready to run out of time here, but a real important question, and something that has been top of mind here across the city now for almost a year, if not longer, is the issue of public safety and policing. And maybe you can share with us, what is your vision of policing and public safety here in Seattle, say over the 5 years from now? What would it look like if you had it your way?
So number one, I think one of the core values that we need to be solving for is that no one in our city, regardless of race, regardless of the color of their skin, should be afraid about going about their day-to-day lives. And that includes, you know, getting in your car. It includes calling for help. That needs to stop, you know. And I think of a conversation I had with a friend over the summer. We were trying to get together to, you know, have a glass of wine on her patio. And she was like, you know what? I want you to come to my house tonight because Sandra Bland is just on my mind and I don't feel safe driving tonight. And that is just wrong. And so in 5 years, our city has space where every single person feels safe. The second thing is that public safety has to be more than a traditional police response, right? One of the things that we've learned over a long time, like these are things that we need to be doing and should have been doing decades ago. But this idea that public safety is also those things that create cultural, social, economic thriving, right? And so to craft our public safety budgets based on both of those two values, that everybody, regardless of their race, should feel safe in this city when they go about their day-to-day lives. And number two, that public safety actually includes all of those supports that make a community thrive.
All right. And what time you got over there? I'm trying to squeeze out as many questions as I can here while we have you. One last question here, and especially when we talk about community. Trey Holiday, I mean, Jake Gravbrod is well, not quite just as good, but almost as good as Trey Holiday. But if Treyana was here, she would really want me to talk about, or she would be asking you about, our community, or the legacy Black community here in Seattle. We talk about the big three. The average Black household makes $42,500 a year. The average white household, $105,000. Black home ownership is in constant decline. Home ownership equals generational wealth. Also, the educational gap between Black students and white students in Seattle public schools, it's improving, but for the most part, it's been abysmal. For our community, for the Black community here, and for the marginalized communities as a whole in the city of Seattle, what kind of extra effort or attention would you be willing to give as mayor to be able to address these things?
I mean, I think the first thing is just to talk about the nexus between 50 years of failed trickle-down economics and how that intersects with systemic racism. And the result is that you have Black families so far behind, and this is a system that is designed to work that way. And so our job at the city level is to, number one, like I said, this around the Black business ownership and the value, we need to say those things, and then we actually need to create specific goals, because when you say those goals, you can then develop the strategies. So we need to have specific goals and dashboards around Black family wealth and income, around Black business value, around education attainment rates, and then develop those policies. And I hope I get to come back on another show and really dig into what those are, because we know what those things are. Community has been saying that for a long time, and we need to stop patting our back because of incrementalism and really lean into the big solutions that we need in this city to rearrange money and power.
Yeah, well, we definitely want to have you back here. There's so many different things to talk about. I didn't even get to my question about how to make spending on infrastructure sexy, because no one wants to spend on that. You know what I'm saying? And we all this deferred maintenance here that's coming back to haunt us. I got questions. So I look forward to us connecting again. Before we let you go, how can people keep up with you and your campaign?
Well, we are so proud. We were the fastest in the race to qualify in 4 days, and we're going to take that grassroots support and keep going. Come visit me at www.jessenformayor.com, and I hope to see you on the campaign trail. Thank you so much for having me today.
All right, Jessen, talk to you soon.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right.
You too.
Gravbrod, you're a transportation wonk.
Yeah.
Did Jessen hit some of the points that you're interested in?
Yeah. And, there's still, I have more questions too in regards to that. I definitely could hit on some other topics that I think that we can do to help improve the ridership. And you use the word sexiness, but I would love to see, metro and transit use be sexy to the general public. So let's get there.
Yeah. I mean, I was a metro kid. I tell people all the time. Matter of fact, big shout out to all the metro bus drivers out there. You know what I'm saying? Sound Transit, Link Light Rail, but especially the Metro. I grew up on Metro. You know what I'm saying? The number 3, the number 4, the 27. You know what I'm saying? The 14, the 2. Like, what's happening? But yeah, I mean, it's real interesting here how the transportation dynamic, and also it's interesting because how people in the municipality itself view transit, and then people in the surrounding areas. And traditionally, when suburbs grow that are more affluent, they absolutely do not want public transit out there. I mean, all across America.
Well, and that's why I try to touch on that. You know, some people think that it doesn't affect them, but in all honesty, it does. The less people that are on the roads, that are using public transit, the better that it is for everybody. So,
all right, the discussion continues. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we have comedian and cartoonist Brett Hamill. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Community Voices returns for 2021 with 2 very special episodes that examine the shifting demographics and cultures of Seattle. Converge Media proudly presents Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition. This is a 2-part special that examines 4 Seattle neighborhoods: the Central District, Chinatown International District, the University District, and Ballard, all Seattle neighborhoods that have experienced great change and displacement due to gentrification, rising rents, and development, as well as found creative ways to stay rooted and resilient. Also, all neighborhoods that have a long and proud history, culture, and traditions that combined help shape the face of the Emerald City as we know it today. The Community Voices episodes will include films plus discussions with local small business owners and community members. These are 2 powerful live episodes that you will not want to miss. So make sure and save the date, March 18th and March 25th at 7 p.m. across all Converge Media platforms. Presented by the City of Seattle Department of Neighborhoods and Vanishing Seattle.
All right, that's this Thursday, 7 p.m. Converge Media partnered up with Vanishing Seattle for Community Voices, Vanishing Seattle edition, episode number 2, and we're focusing on Ballard and on the Central District. And actually, Jake, you shot the segments there, Skull Beer Hall out in Ballard and the Postman in the Central District. Huh?
Yep. Yeah, these stories are going to be great to be able to see, and also if you're paying attention, really, to see the similarities between these neighborhoods. So tune in on Thursday night because it's something you're definitely not going to want to miss.
All right. Oh yeah, D'Alessandro, please bring in Brett Hamill. Brett,
what's up?
What's up, man? How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So I see we have an old friend here on set.
Yes,
right?
Jake.
Man, it's been a year since I've seen you.
Some of the happiest nights of my life were spent in this guy's orbit. So
we're gonna have to go into those off air. All right, Brett. So the reason why I hit you up. I mean, of course, I read the comics. And actually, Brett, when I had OPA director Meyerberg here on the show, and you sent me a question, and you were like, ask the director if he's read my comic, and I asked him on air, right? He wasn't happy about that, by the way. Good. But I saw that like some of your comics lately. Well, actually, let me take one step back. Let you introduce yourself to everybody. I'm putting the cart ahead of the horse, so you can introduce yourself to everybody. Tell them what you do.
Sure. Well, I'm a comedian and cartoonist. Some people in the political world might know me from the Seattle Process, which is a political comedy talk show I put on at the Northwest Film Forum up until the pandemic shut it down. So about 5 or 6 years. And through that, I got to meet talk to a lot of progressive politicians, a lot of activists and revolutionaries that I interviewed, and kind of got into political comedy. It just became something I did. And with the pandemic going on, I was not able to continue that live show. So I figured a way to kind of funnel some of that commentary into a comic strip. I've been a contributor to the Emerald for pretty much since they started. So I got hooked up with Marcus and then off and running, put one up every Sunday. And it's been probably about 8 months now, every week, banging one out.
Yeah. So the comics, I thought it was interesting, right? Because I'm assuming that, I mean, it could just be how you feel personally, but I'm assuming that it's a lot of people that kind of feel the same way, is that some of the comics you've been talking about lately were that a lot of politicians in the Seattle area were able to kind of hide or disguise themselves when Trump was in office. But now that Trump is out of office, you're kind of like, well, what are they going to do?
Yeah, they had a boogeyman. And the same goes for Tim Eyman on the state level. Now that he's been prosecuted and might never be able to handle political money again. They're not going to have him to point to as the supervillain. So now they actually, you know, back in the Trump era, anyone to the right of Tim Burgess was part of the resistance. And now that Trump's gone, it seems like they're kind of rolling things right back up into the status quo. You don't hear anyone talking about defund the SPD. There's a lot. Everyone wants to get really, you know, talk about really wonky stuff. They don't want to talk about the passionate stuff that gets all the Cairo and Como viewers riled up, or that encourages the more revolutionary-minded people. So yeah, we turned a corner there somewhere, and the fact that Jenny Durkin could no longer handle the heat showed that we were onto something, right? And now the next mayoral candidate, the next two council seats that get filled, those people are just trying to get just as close to Jenny Durkin and just to the left of her to kind of get that mainstream vote. So there's some weird stuff going on right now.
So people were riding the wave basically, and I mean that, like I said, that's just kind of the gist of what I've gotten out of a lot of your cartoons that I've been following. And you know, it's also representative, I think, of a lot of sentiment from people in the streets that I've heard as well. It's like, well, Trump's gone, the conversation is different now. And the conversation is much more relaxed, and is much more, I guess you would say, moderate in those circles amongst our elected officials. So you had a question, Jake?
And not necessarily a question again, but also just you know, I appreciate the comics for being something that helps to keep the feet to the fire, if you will. You know, the last year we saw a lot of tumult, and I've been reading your comics and also just watching your comedy for the last couple of years, you know, in conjunction. So, you know, this upcoming year being an election year, I think it's important that we keep putting these people's feet to the fire, because, you know, we are a city that likes to, you know, parade as liberal, but there still are a lot of things that, you know, can be pressed and paid attention to, and whether it's done through comics or whether it's done through the show here or the newspaper or all the different forms of media that there can be, you are one valuable piece to the ecosystem. So keep up that work. You know,
no one wants to be laughed at. You know, no one wants to be a cartoon. And that's a way that I figured out that I could kind of contribute to the discourse, is just by making jokes about these people. It's very disarming, and it can be very powerful to really just laugh at something together that's just ridiculous. And I think with the political cartoons, it's catharsis. It's a political catharsis, because people go throughout their day, they read these terrible Seattle Times op-eds, they see these reports on Como and Cairo and King describing, you know, white militia members as nonprofits, is one I just saw on Twitter. And you think all you can do is fume on Twitter or whatever. You think you're going to go insane. And so just, I think it's important for people to see their worldview reflected back at them. It's very cathartic. I've had people tell me that before, that they need to laugh a little because they're so furious all the time. So that's kind of how I'm trying to help out, I guess.
You know, it's like I've laughed at quite a few of these.
Oh yeah,
because some of them is true. So we've got one here, and I'll let you go through. We're gonna put it up on the screen. This is blocky.
Yeah.
If you could read through this for our audience.
Hey kids, I'm Blocky, the concrete barrier block. I'm made of 4,200 pounds of strong, durable concrete. Ever since I was poor, I've dreamt of protecting children from falling into open construction pits, or helping drivers safely navigate traffic revisions to keep neighborhoods safe. However, I've been sitting in front of the damn police precinct all year long as part of a propaganda campaign by thumb-headed, power-tripping cops to convince everyone that they're the real victims, so they can keep soaking up all that sweet, sweet overtime to make the payments on their big suburban houses, jet skis, and jacked up 4x4s. I may be a concrete block, but I'm not stupid.
And this is for people, he can break this down. For people who might not be aware, this is in reference, especially the East Precinct, but the West Precinct as well, had the concrete barriers. The East Precinct still has the concrete barriers up, right?
Yeah, and that was just that's one of the fun things you can do with political cartoons is you can voice inanimate objects, or you can put words in people's mouths that are saying what they are really saying. And so Blocky is one of my favorites for that reason. I'm actually trying to find someone to help me make plushies of Blocky and sell them to benefit, probably bail relief or something. So if you're interested in a Blocky plushie for your couch, hit me up on Twitter.
Just so we can be clear, where do you stand on this political? Where you fit in on this political spectrum here?
I mean, I usually ride with the socialists of whatever stripe, or just the broadly defined left, the actual left, not the progressive left. So there's probably maybe 2 council members that I think adequately represent my political position. Those would be Shama Sawant and Tammy Morales, and sometimes some of the others maybe. But I do believe in. I'm an electoralist. I believe that we do need to get people in power. So I'm not a full-blown anarchist, I guess. But I'm on the left. I mean, I try not. I don't think you should have to have too many descriptors about it. Just I know it when I see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always good because people can be like, "This is where I'm at. This is where I believe." Before we get out of here, so I know that you have some e-zines. It looked like we got a pretty big reaction there from some of these from Blocky that we put up on screen. We'll put this other overlay up here, and you can tell people how they can find more of your stuff. We have
Sure.
There we go.
Yeah, that's my. So I have a big cartel page. That's just basically where I sell comics and zines. So on the right, you see some mini zines. I drew cartoons for City Arts magazine for the better part of a decade before that publication folded. And then on the left there, you see the first edition of my political cartoons that basically cover kind of the summer and going into September. Putting out a new volume probably in the next week or so that will cover September up until now. So they're kind of I just look at them, it's kind of a fun time capsule to kind of see where all our heads were at the time, and some of the machinations that were going on at City Hall and some of the propaganda that the SPD was putting out at the time. And I think people seem to enjoy them. And I also do cartoons for Seattle's Child magazine just to mix it up a little. So I do cartoons about kids and parenting and stuff as well. So I got some new stuff going up on the shop pretty soon that you can check out.
All right, good stuff, Brett. And before we let you go, how can people keep up with you, your cartoons, your satire, some of everything?
Twitter at Brett Hamill, BRETTHAMIL. And Instagram is Brett Hamill Comics. So you'll see my Emerald comics that post every Sunday. Some of my parenting and comics about little kids, and also some other series I'm working on. So most of them I'm working towards making these, professionally bound books. This is the one about little kids I've got coming out soon. So yeah, just holler at me, say hi. It'll be nice to have people say hi who aren't members of Facebook hate groups, constantly trolling me. We got to stick together.
Hey man, I would say this is that as we get closer to the primaries and then the election, I know that we're going to be talking to you more and more. This is warm up season right now. It's just getting warmed up. But we look forward to having you back soon in the near future, Brett.
Hey, and Brett, I look forward to the day when we can join again at the Clock Out Lounge for your weekly Joke Tellers Union, because I miss those days. So
I can't wait, man. I when I saw you on the show today, I was like, oh man, that's the dude.
I knew you'd be kind of excited to have me as a surprise guest. So I was excited to have you here.
Yeah, man.
Good stuff. Brett, thanks for taking time with us this morning. We'll be back in touch with you soon.
Thanks, Omari. Thanks, Jake.
Peace.
No problem.
This is Brett Hamill, man. Have you I check out his comics. And I'm telling you, there really is a lot of people that actually feel, sometimes people are just, it's abstract. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of stuff that he puts in the comics is stuff that people really be feeling, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a finger on the pulse. He's involved in the community. He's got his own, like I mentioned, he's got his own weekly comedy show that he had at with Emmett Montgomery at the Clockout Lounge every Wednesday, and they had a very dedicated following of people. And you would see, what you see in his political comics, you also would hear throughout his his comedy every week. And he's been involved with the Democratic Socialists of America, if I'm correct, but he's always had his finger on that pulse. So,
all right, good stuff. What time do you have over there, Oya? It's noon exactly. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to mouth all this instead of playing the video. Want to remind everybody one more time. Can I get this camera right here? My mom might be watching. You know what I'm saying? I gotta make sure I look straight here. This Thursday, 7 p.m., Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle Edition, episode 2, and we're focusing on the Ballard neighborhood in my neighborhood, the Central District. That's this Thursday, 7 p.m. Once you check in for that. Any last words, Mr. Grabrot?
I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity to step in for the one and only Treyana Holiday, and we'll be excited to have her back tomorrow.
Oh, and I got a handcrafted, let me play my handcrafted motion graphics here real quick. Tomorrow, Brianna Thomas, candidate for City Council seat D9. There's handcrafted motion graphics right there. So we had to make sure we get that. Thank you for the reminder. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, we're getting ready to get out of here. So as usual, I want to remind you, go forward in your purpose and go forward in your humanity. Until tomorrow at 11 a.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rise.